why we also started our farm and our homestead, is just trying to make the world a better place, trying to create a little bit of buffer between all the stuff going on. And the purpose of the meeting is to hang out, talk about underground greenhouse, talk about trying to implement some more sustainable practices into our life in an efficient, affordable manner. So that's kind of what we're doing, is the efficiency part and the affordability, you know, because you can spend $200,000 and build anything, $300,000, $400,000, and you can get a really big, beautiful underground greenhouse built, right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at how we can do it with upcycled materials, recycled materials, up-purposed, you know, things that are going to be turned into waste. How can we make them, you know, into these greenhouse projects, into making our life better instead of making more landfills, right? So we're trying to figure out how to kind of create some solutions to some serious things going on. Food security is a big deal. We all kind of know about it. But also money, and huge big deal as well, because that's the issue why food stability is food instability, is because of the cost of farming, cost of purchasing food and things like that. So that's kind of what our whole project is. How can we produce better quality food, more of it at a better price? Not how can we throw billions of dollars at it and next year have to put more, right? So that's the current trajectory of what we're doing, and we're trying to figure out, is there a system that you can establish that benefits more the next year, not less? And so that's the whole synergistic, holistic approach to this new farming and gardening, and even building, using cob and clay and adobe and natural materials, and forest wood, using timber, doing post frame type stuff, and trying to use a little bit more of what's available and what nature's producing, versus how do we put up more factories, right? So that's kind of the whole thing. And simplified, we were talking about it this morning. Simplified, we're trying to find our sovereignty again, trying to get that pursuit of happiness back into every American home, every American business, every family in the entire world. But we can't do much about 5,000 miles away. We can do a lot about 50 miles away, about 15 miles away. So we're starting here in our valley, and we're trying to create a cool system that's going to help everybody and everything, and kind of perpetuate sustainability each year, versus black hole needing more and more and more, which is kind of what we're set up to do right now. We could talk about it in kind of every single category. It's that way when you really get into the nitty gritty. So the whole purpose of this event is to talk about our geothermal greenhouse practices. What we're doing here currently, the goal is to have it be under $2,000 total for the entire cost. So this is something that's doable for everybody and anybody. Is about the target goal is about $2,000 total for everybody involved, labor, etc., to get it at least operating. Not completely finished, never going to touch it again. A lot of these natural structures are living structures, right? We're living people. And even our stick-built homes, you're having to redo the mud, you're having to redo the stucco, you're having to redo the drywall tape. So those are kind of living buildings as well. They rot, they have issues as well. So we're taking the model of everything is living, everything needs repairs, everything needs this way. So we're trying to find out how to do it in a healthy, holistic, sustainable, affordable manner. And we're, definitely proving the pudding here with this project. So this project's about 3 years in the making. This is our walapini here, and it's in Stevensville. It's about 80-ish% done, I'd say. And like we were talking about, there's 2 giant white honey figs in there, bananas, tamarillo, passion fruit, star fruit, lychee, tomatoes, edible flowers. I mean, you can see it's like a jungle in here, in the rows, there's walking space, but in the actual garden rows and garden beds, you don't want to see any bare soil, right? You don't see bare soil in nature, except for where there's walking paths and moving paths and things like that. So we're trying to kind of steward instead of arm wrestle with nature. The whole entire mentality is, less is more. Trying to figure out the path of least resistance for all parties involved and benefit for all parties involved as much as possible. And so all of these companion plants are actually benefiting the other plants, whether weed management, whether weed suppression, water retention, pest prevention, pest traps even. So some of these nasturtium, they'll often get the pests first. You could rip the nasturtium leaves off and they'll regrow within a week, right? So you want different plants for different reasons. There's rosemary and Tulsi basil and regular basils and shiso, which are both going to be for the purpose of aiding the plants, is permaculture, right? So you're letting plants help plants instead of you putting more and more labor into the project. It's a little bit more labor up front, especially for the first year, 2 years or so. And after that, the permaculture method kind of takes over and kind of does its own thing. It's really fun. So the main benefits of geothermal greenhouses is, probably can tell, it's like a root cellar with a greenhouse roof. So you're tapping into geothermal temperatures, about 50, 55 degrees, depending on where you go, right? But about 6 foot deep, 8 foot deep, you're almost always right around that 50 degree mark. So in summertime, you can use that 50 degrees to cool it off. In the wintertime, you can use that 50 degrees to heat it up to above freezing. So that's the whole entire goal here is the ambient temperatures stay well below in summer and well above in winter. Completely cut the heat to our greenhouse. Negative 20 outside, it's like 40 degrees inside, right? And to heat it up is super efficient, super easy. Some 2,000 square foot greenhouses, like I was talking to the master gardeners, sometimes in winter they're burning like 1,000 gallons of propane to keep that thing 65, 70 degrees. We're keeping it like 60 to 72 degrees, maybe 100 gallons. So it's about 1/10 of the operating cost overall, which is huge in itself. And then on top of everything, using these types of materials, they're cleaner, they're natural, they're fun, they're more enjoyable to work with. It's a lot of sensory kind of stuff. It's like a little kid playing with, water paint, throwing mud at the wall and smearing. It's pretty fun stuff. And it's also cool to involve the community and get people involved. It's not like a traditional job. It's a little bit more labor and manpower to get some of this stuff done if you don't have all the equipment. So it's, there's lots of fun stuff going on with it. So there's also, you want to get that south exposure as much as possible in the winter. Sometimes it'll be 20 degrees outside, and just with a little bit of sun, it'll get up to 70, 75 with zero heat. The heater might kick on at 9 in the morning once, and then by 10, 11, when the heat's, when the sun's kind of getting in there, it jacks up the heat so quick. And then we're using heat sinks, so you can use rocks, you can use clay, you can use 50-gallon barrels, steel, the big totes, and you could fill them full of water, sand, and glycerin. And those will absorb that sunlight and radiate the heat as well. So you can use different heat sinks to really up your, redundancy and your climate battery, your climate control. Because the Earth only has so much energy it can provide. So you're trying to provide as much extra holding capacity of that sun energy or that cooling energy. So it does back and forth. Those tubs, those heat sinks, whatever you're using for your heat sink will also cool off in the summer, right? So it'll be 90, 100 degrees outside, and those barrels will want to stay 55, 60 degrees, and they'll be radiating that 55, 60 degrees, and they'll kind of balance out the temperature. So pretty easy just with shade cloth over our greenhouse. August, 120 in some greenhouses. Ours is like 80, 90 degrees just with some shade cloth. You can run some misters, get it down to 75, 80 degrees. So it's just overall way easier to keep it hot, keep it cool. Water retention is a huge benefit. So watering is about half the time. You can almost overwater too easily in the underground greenhouses, especially when you're putting mulch and companion plants like you see here in our greenhouse. So there's actually about 2 foot or so of mulch everywhere. And then in these raised beds, some of them are about 3 foot tall of raised beds. And then they go into the ground as well. So these roots can go down as deep as they want. That's the other benefit of being right into the soil. Some of them are 3 years old, 4 years old. And instead of pulling out your tomatoes every single year, the crowns are regrowing, right? So tons of labor reduction. If you had to plant 150 tomatoes every single year and transplant them and harden them off and do your whole thing, they're ready to go. They don't have to do anything. They just kind of wilt down a little bit, if anything, and come right back to life. Like we have tomatoes right now that are, I think, 10 foot tall already and producing tomatoes and flowers. You can also cut clones off those for outdoors. So all in all, these geothermal systems are going to be saving tons of time, tons of labor. And we calculated about, 2,000 pounds of just tomatoes last year. So out of one 2,000 square foot greenhouse, and there's other stuff going on, you can see. So just of tomato production was about 2,000 pounds in 1 year. And some of those plants are 2 years old. So sometimes tomato plants might produce 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. That's, serious master gardener stuff. Whereas these are producing 200, 300, 400 pounds over their lifetime without being replanted. And they're able to be cutting clones off of them. So, really, you could get 1,000+ pounds off one plant since you're cutting the clones and right. And then not to mention, these roots are growing so far deep down into the ground that they're sweeter, they're less bitter, they're more favorable for everybody. They have more nutrition, they have more nutrient density. It's all in all pretty much the best of the best in every category. Having the underground greenhouses is definitely the way of the future. And the word form is walapini, if anybody's heard me talk about walapini yet. And it comes from the Quechua people of the Andes Mountains. And my brother and family actually found out about these like 20 years ago. They were doing some nonprofit work and found these people were surviving famines up at 15,000, 13,000 feet elevation up in the Andes Mountains using walapinis. They were able to grow food all year long, no issues. And that's how they live up there. So that's probably one of the harshest climates that we could imagine, South America at 13,000 feet, and they're doing just fine. So that's kind of why we're implementing these in our modern, Western United States world. Is if everybody had one of these, we would never have famine. And so that's the goal here. Another option, if you have like a hoop house or a traditional greenhouse already built, there's also geothermal active climate batteries. Anybody know about like radiant heating or geothermal heating, so you guys have it in your floor, right? The piping underneath the ground. So there's another way you can do that without a water heater or without a big heating system, and you can use the passive heat of the ground again. So you can dig down about 8 to 10 feet underground, put in a 3 or 4 inch tubing, piping of any sort, poly, steel, galvanized, whatever you have available. And you run it about anywhere between 25 feet and 100 feet underground. You have one end going into the coldest spot, and then blowing from the coldest spot underground and going into a more climate centered, climate stable area, or a heat sink. You know, you put a big heat sink right next to the fan, and that geothermal climate battery will actually heat up hoop houses and greenhouses very efficiently. You can even put a geothermal piping system into the walapinis and underground systems to add extra redundancy. So it's our goal this year is to install the geothermal piping. We're just trying to figure all that out. So there's lots of different options. Some people don't have the space. Some people don't have the money. Some people are renting and they don't really want to build a big underground greenhouse, but their landlord's fine with them putting in a pipe or something like that. It's just a different way to still get, 9, 10, 11 months out of the year for growing season. And you just kind of have to go into cold root veggies, carrots, and spinach and stuff like that towards the winter. So it's, very, very efficient, and also not as invasive as, digging into the ground a big greenhouse. Or some people can't, they have a foot water table and they don't want to berm up, because that's the other option. If you have a 1 or 2 foot water table, you need to really go about 5-6 feet deep. So the other option is to, 50, 100 yards of topsoil and berm into it south facing. So there's lots of different ways to accomplish this, and it's very, site specific locale, right? It's very customizable based on the needs, requirements, the land. Everything is very unique, specific to the area. Some places have more gravel, some places have more clay. So it changes slightly based on environment, but the concept is still the same. You're tapping into the natural earth cooling and heating for productivity all year round. That's just the whole geothermal model. Yeah, and it really allows the permaculture model to take off in new heights. Permaculture really thrives on soil food web, if anybody's familiar with the soil food web at all. So it's like our gut. So the soil of nature is basically like the gut of a human body. So our gut's breaking down, it's processing all of our nutrients. There's a connection from our brain, gut-brain connection. So the same thing's going on in the soil. The soil is actually telling the plant what's going on, what temperature it is. Kind of everything is based on, of course, above, but the main part of the plant is its roots in order to create anything above the ground. And so it's starting in the roots, just like everything, all of our energy starts in our gut. So it's the same thing. So the soil food web really thrives the longer you can keep it alive, the longer you can keep it out of hibernation mode, the more active all of those microbes, all the fungi, all of the worms. I mean, every single chunk of soil you grab from our garden has 20, 30 worms in it all year long. I mean, you could probably start a worm farm just by putting a cardboard sheet over some of the garden. And yeah, you could use them for fishing. You could use them for feeding chickens. But that's a big, huge sign that there is a living environment when there's that much worms all year long. There's protozoa. You could do a soil sample. You'd probably see billions and billions of active nematodes and protozoa and predatory mites. And there's, ladybug eggs going off all over. I just saw the other day, there was like 20 ladybugs all on their own, just doing their thing. So it's building these geothermal greenhouses are able to really create a sustainable jungle, almost a sustainable living environment of a food, a food forest that's able to be put in any climate. You could drop it in a desert, you could drop it anywhere you want, and you could literally grow any food you want all year. So it's basically going to revolutionize food production and, health, wellness, the whole nine. goal is, 10,000 square feet of bananas, 10,000 square feet of citrus, and then we wouldn't need, food shipped from California that costs $10,000 to ship it. It cuts the shipping fees out. Whether it's getting subsidized or not, it's still there, right? So this whole system is about supporting local, and then it's not just about local, it's about you can also utilize this and implement this wherever you are. So it's in the beginning stages now. We kind of had to get some of this stuff done and some of the data, and we didn't just want to waste everybody's time with a concept that doesn't work and with a project that doesn't work, and it's just kind of shooting from the hip and hoping for the moon when it's not really ever there. And the next goals from here is to build more of them. The main project is every single neighborhood should have one, every single home should have one, every institution, every food bank, every dog shelter. I mean, kind of, if everybody had one of these in their neighborhood, life would be a lot better, That's kind of the goal. And the biggest complaint is, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't know how to garden. So our organization, our group is trying to solve all of those problems within our own organization and not causing extra back-end problems. It's solving it all holistically within house. And stewarding and teaching others, we don't want to just do it all for you. That's a for-profit business. If you guys can do it, do it. We're not gatekeeping this info. We're not gatekeeping this stuff at all. But we want to work together and not appropriate. We want to help each other, not steal for ourselves, right? That's not gotten us very far. We all know it. We're in this predicament because of that, right? The whole dog-eat-dog world has not gotten us very far. We're all kind of wanting out. And so we're trying to kind of pull the brakes on that with this system. This is kind of our way in doing it, I guess. Build a community, get a little bit of food resilience, and with better quality food, we're going to have better quality people. We're going to have a better quality life. Health, wellness, food, shelter, kind of the pinnacle, right? It's kind of the foundation of, you don't have shelter, you don't have food, you can't do much else. So we're trying to kind of take a little bit step back, but also provide kind of a dual purpose little project. However everybody wants to get involved, we have a lot of different options, a lot of different ways. We have volunteering options. We have, an hour a week, 2 hour a week, 5 hour a week, 20 hour a week. And we have multiple packages options. And we're hoping to get involved with a lot of different businesses as well, to allow more services, more goods, put together some fun CSA packages, both for the volunteers and for the community through these different greenhouse and sustainable systems. So yeah, fun stuff. Any questions?
Is this, we're talking about the soil, so you
Yeah.
have to amend the soil very much. It's self-sustaining, let's get it in there.
That's the fun part. Last year, I think we maybe used, if you want to calculate it totally, we made it ourselves. It might have been $50 worth of amendments the entire year.
All these fish.
We used local trout. We mixed it with honey and fermented it for a fish amino acid emulsion. And some amino acids, some probiotics from raw milk. We take the raw milk. We also teach permaculture. We teach others how to do this themselves. We also sell different products and the fish emulsions and the lactobacillus and different things like that as well. So, but also if you don't, I don't want to buy it from you, I want to do it myself. How do you do it? We're as well willing to consult and teach others. So, but yeah, like you said, the first 2 years, it's probably $5,000 worth of compost and down to earth amendments and different things, right? But year 2, way less. Last year, almost nothing. This next year, pretty much just dropping. That's the other thing is in the permaculture system, unless a plant is completely infested with bugs, you want to drop it back on the soil because that's feeding You know, in the jungle, in the rainforest, there's nobody coming by and taking it all and putting it in trash bags and throw it in the dump, right? So what it's doing is it's creating its own food source.
It's like weeds.
Yep. Right? And if you take those leaves away,